Hey, welcome in.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast.
We are here coming to you live.
The Kansas City Chiefs are going to the Super Bowl. You only win a Super Bowl 2 times every 5 years, right? Oh! The warm-up act is over. Let's bring in Melissa Etheridge, massive Chiefs fan. Melissa,
Super Bowl champion, 2-time Pro Bowler, and Trent Green. Trent Green, how you doing?
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And he picked it up! He picked it up! He's gonna score!
and we'll see you next week. But until then, as always, go Chiefs.
Welcome to the Arrowhead Addict podcast on this Tuesday. Sterling Holmes, Josh Brisco. You can follow him on the X at JB Brisco, myself at Homestretch KC. Some fun stuff to get into as the NFL decided to have some breaking news happen before our show just for us, Brisco. They're like, you know what? Devontae Adams traded. Amari Cooper traded. This is what they want. Mike Williams. Ooh. Like, this is what the NFL wanted because they knew we were having a show right now at 3 p.m. Central. Brisco, how are you?
I'm great. And you know what the NFL doesn't know? Something that you also right now don't know. Let me ask you a question, Sterling. Am I giving you anything different in terms of the energy that I'm presenting today for today's show? Do I feel anything different to you?
Please tell me, did you beat diabetes?
No, humanity is still 0 for infinity on defeating type 1 diabetes.
Dang.
No, some would say it's even better. You may be able to see off here in the corner off screen my desk chair. That's currently sitting right there because your boy's on a yoga ball today. We're yoga ball desk chair right now. Renee found this in the basement, or I found that it was Renee's in the basement. I forgot we had it, and the yoga ball is like a way to try to fix your posture and strengthen your core. And I used it for a while yesterday. Today I got a big podcast day between this and Weird Games at about 4:30, and I thought, you know what? We're going to see standing energy in radio we both know about. We've talked about. We've done this.
Strong.
Standing energy is very different than sitting energy. But yoga ball energy, I'm feeling kind of zen. My back feels amazing. My posture feels good. Saw you do the little string at the top of your head posture trick. I'm feeling flexible. I'm feeling frisky. I'm feeling like it's an NFL trade Tuesday, no less. So I'm excellent, my friend. I'm happy to be here.
Well, apparently finding a yoga ball is better than Brisco beating diabetes in his mind. So at least he's got that going for him.
One of them was a lot more likely. Take the wins where you can get them.
All right. Before we talk about all of the, before we talk again about all the receivers and potential trades, I do want to talk about the Chiefs' new normal. Like, is this who they are? Okay, I want to get into that in 1 second. But before we do, Underdog. Oof. Yeah, you've heard us talk about this before. Underdog Fantasy. It's bleeping awesome. I love Underdog. I had a good week, so maybe that's why. But I love Underdog. Making picks is so simple. It is so easy. Last year, over 1 million fans across 33 states got in the game last year. I'm making picks right there on Underdog. You can win up to 1,000 times your money just by choosing the higher or lower on your favorite player stats. Now, myself, I'm more in that 10 times your money range. I'm more of like trying to turn 5 into 50. And I've done it a couple of times. You feel pretty good. That still gives me the little bumps in my chest. And if you want those bumps in your chest, go right there to Underdog. It's Underdog's simple to use mobile app or underdogfantasy.com. You can sign up with promo code Arrowhead Addict, and Underdog will give you a free pick to use on your first cash pick'em, plus up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you deposit. That's Underdog Fantasy promo code Arrowhead Addict to claim your new customer special of a free pick and your deposit offer. All right, let's have some fun like I'm Twista. Must be 18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama, Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Massachusetts and Arizona, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.ncpgambling.org. Arizona, 1-800-NEXT STEP, 1-800-639-8783, or text NEXT STEP to 53342. New York, call the 24/7 Hope line at 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
Pretty good.
Halfway through that, I got a little bit of a one little slip up and it got me.
You got to bump around New York, I think, but by and large,
Yeah, New York kind of it's the Yankees. Bleep the Yankees. All right, let's start with the wide receiver news. So Davante Adams, he's going to the Green Bay Packers. Davante Adams leaving the Raiders.
No,
Shocking.
that's not true. That's not right.
What?
He's going to the New York Jets.
What did I say?
You said Davante Adams is going to the Green Bay Packers, and it took me a second to figure out.
Oh,
if
no,
that was
sorry.
right or not.
You misunderstood me. The 2016 Green Bay Packers, Eddie
That's
Lacy also coming out. Oh, you thought I was
That's
kidding?
right. No,
You
there
thought
you go.
No, I'm being serious. You haven't heard
Eddie
about
Lacy's
Randall
back?
Cobb? You haven't heard about Randall Cobb and Jordy Nelson? And
Jordy
Eddie Lacy?
Nelson should be back. Eddie Lacy deserves another chance.
So, yes, they are going to the Green Bay Packers, the 2016 Green Bay Packers. No, Davante Adams heading to New York to the Jets. The Jets are trading a third-round draft pick. It turns into a second-round draft pick conditionally if he's a first-team or second-team All-Pro, unlikely at this point, or if he plays in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, again, unlikely at this
Even
point.
more unlikely at this point.
So for all intents and purposes, this is a third-round draft pick being sent for Davante Adams. You might say, oh, wow, a third rounder for Davante. That seems super cheap until you look at his contract and the fact that the Jets are taking all of the money on the contract. The Raiders are washing their hands of this, and the Jets took it all. If you look at his contract, they can get out of it after this year, but then you spend a third rounder on a rental. He is under contract for 2 more seasons, but they're $36 million per year. So that's going to have to get restructured at some point. I still think he's a very good receiver. I still think this is a good move for the Jets, who have not won a Super Bowl in 56 seasons. I get it. You have 1, maybe 2 years left with Aaron Rodgers. I don't think Davante Adams, though, had any chance of coming to KC. Again, based on that contract, the Raiders did not want to take on that money necessarily unless they gave up a second or a first. The Chiefs were not going to most likely offer a first rounder for Davante Adams. So I don't think the Chiefs were in the running here.
Yeah, on the Adams one in particular, I think everything you laid out, you're dead on. I've got like very, very little to add in this particular one because I do think, I think we talked about this a week or two ago, the idea that the Raiders simply wouldn't trade him to the Chiefs, if it's true or not, notwithstanding, that's poor logic if you're a football team trying to improve right now that has a long runway to being legitimately contending again. So if the Chiefs would have said, hey, we'll give you a first for you to take on pretty much all of this money, then I think the Raiders should have taken that. The Raiders should have been shopping Davante Adams and will pay the money because the only thing they should care about is getting the best draft pick they possibly could. I don't know if those offers ever got better. I don't imagine any team was more, I don't want to say desperate because I'm not even sure that's the right word, but I'm not sure that any other team valued potentially just 10 or 11 games of Davante Adams as highly as the Jets did. So I will have a little bit of a different take when we get to the Amari Cooper deal, but Adams going to the Jets for that compensation, the Jets taking on all the money, that felt like the most likely, most logical outcome, even though I'm not sure that logical is a word that the Jets definitely have earned at this point. By and large, it makes enough sense to me.
So again, we all are in agreement here. Davante Adams, based on the contract, the compensation, what it would take the Chiefs to go out and acquire him. The Chiefs were not in the running for Davante Adams. Just fiscally didn't make a lot of sense. Now, Amari Cooper.
Yeah.
This one is, I think, one where Chiefs fans, you could have a little bit of an argument for. You could feel some type of way like your rich homie Quan, and I will not argue with you. Amari Cooper is now heading to the Buffalo Bills. Was a third rounder?
Yep. And the Bills get back a sixth rounder. The Bills get Cooper and a sixth. Cleveland gets a third and a seventh in 2026.
Okay.
So it's a little less than just a third round pick.
And the thing with Amari, this is a rental.
Yep.
His contract becomes void. It says he's like 3 years left, but they're all void years. Cleveland.
Browns cap magic. And by magic, I mean not magic.
Yeah, the Browns, thank you, because it made it made him expendable. Or made him tradable, palatable. And they're able to get a third round back. So I think if you're the Browns, you say, okay, we're moving on. At least we got something back. We are rebuilding now. however long it takes when you have Deshaun Watson as your quarterback, a non-young quarterback who is 2 scoops of ass. We'll see.
He might be 3. I want you to consider that maybe Deshaun Watson's 3 scoops of back to you.
But it would have taken a little more than the Bills to get Cooper first and foremost. We just know how draft pick works and how no one wants to trade with KC, but also because most likely the Chiefs will have a lower draft pick than the Bills, although the Bills should be pretty low either way because they're going to be pretty damn good, which brings up the L'Jarius Sneed pick. The L'Jarius Sneed one, which is the Colts, feels like that could have been a 1-for-1. Sorry, what did I say? Colts, Titans.
Yeah, it's okay.
Sorry.
Every team is the same. I understand.
They're the same. They just played each other, and the Colts just won by 3. I know these things, but my mind
AFC
is
South
jumbled.
team not named the Texans. It's one of their picks. Who cares?
So, I think the
Oh,
Chiefs.
God, Sterling.
What?
The Bills are waiving MVS. I think we can end this conversation right now. Rappaport just had it. I was just talking to Jordan earlier today. I think if you said straight up, is Marquez Valdez-Scantling a Chief at some point this season? Yes or no?
Yes.
I think they'd probably rather have him than Justin Ross right now.
Do we get playoff MVS? Because if so, I'm all in. If it's
that's a good
playoff
question.
MVS, but for the regular season, I'm in. Because he's, by the way, did I ever tell you that story when I was at the Super Bowl talking to MVS and I brought that up to him? And I was like, dude, what happens to you? The regular season, let's be real, you had a few drops, didn't quite go your way, but in the postseason, you seemingly have your best games. What is it about playoff MVS that makes you so good in these big moments? And he was not happy with that question. He did not like that I phrased it as in apparently he has a bad regular season. I'm like, but the good parts of the question, right? And so
I think it's pretty easy in an instance like that for a player to decide which part of the question they'd like to respond to. And I think, as he did a handful of times here, I think he chose to take that in the worst way possible for the sake of not having to provide you a real answer.
Yeah. So we'll see. MVS released from the Bills. Let's stick with Amari Cooper for one more second here because I think there is.
Oh, sorry. Great point from DJ in the chat. We need Aaron Rodgers to tell the Jets that he wants MVS back.
Wow.
Good take, DJ.
DJ, strong. Rack 'em.
Rack 'em.
All right. Let's stick with Amari Cooper for 1 second here before we get into the other potentials. That Titans third rounder could have gotten Amari, don't you think?
I think the Chiefs third rounder probably could have gotten Amari. The fact that they had to do that little 6th, 7th round little switcheroo back there, the Chiefs in their own third, they could have given up their own 3rd and a 7th and say, we don't need your 6th rounder back. I mean, the thing with the actual details of the Cooper trade that we do know, it is a price the Chiefs could have paid. And it's a price they could have paid while still keeping a 3rd round pick. But be it their own, be it the Titans. Maybe they didn't want to lose 2 picks. And so they said, hey, it's just this pick, trade up or not. It is absolutely a move they could have made. And I do not believe that the Cleveland Browns right now are worried about teams not wanting to trade with the Chiefs. I put that in big air quotes because I think that's a little bit overblown at this point. There are some examples of it. Apparently the Steelers didn't want to trade Deontay Johnson to the Chiefs this offseason. I also don't know that ever got to the point of here's an offer that competes with the best offer you're going to get from Carolina. I'm not sure. I mean, the Bills showed us this in the draft. I think every team should, and I've defended it. I think every team should be thinking in the way of we need to maximize what we can get regardless of whatever narrative we're afraid of. They absolutely could have been in these Amari Cooper sweepstakes. I don't know if they were or not.
And I know a lot of people will now try and find things to knock Cooper. I know PFF doesn't really like Amari Cooper and the drops and the passer rating. And a lot of that does have to do with Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson has thrown him some just incredibly poor balls. I believe there's one stat out there that he actually suffers the most uncatchable targets in the entire NFL.
God, yeah.
Now you get Josh Allen throwing you the football. I think it's a great move for the Bills. Tip your cap. I wish the Chiefs would have made this move because, it's a 1-year contract for a 3rd that the Chiefs have 2 of, and the ability to, I think you could extend him. You have some question marks after this year in regards to Hollywood Brown, right? Obviously, anyone after Xavier and Rashee Rice, and even to an extent, Rashee Rice, you have some question marks about. I don't think Amari Cooper at his age is getting that $25 million per year. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you say go test it, then come back to us. But I think you can probably get him for a 2 or 3 year extension and not the top end of the wide receiver market. And I think you could have had a happy marriage there. I don't want to say disappointed because the Chiefs have won back-to-back Super Bowls. They're going for a three-peat, all this stuff, right? They've earned the benefit of the doubt. But it is a little bit, again, not even disheartening, but when you are going for history, sometimes you want them to take a swing. I'm not asking for Devontae. I'm asking for the move that actually made sense with an extra pick that you've already have in your back pocket. The Bills were, correct me if I'm wrong, if anyone else knows, the last I looked, they were 30th in salary cap open, and they were still able to go out and get Amari Cooper. The Chiefs could have as well. And that's what I think the frustrating part is we're not talking about Devontae or a guy on even like a guy like DeAndre, who I've seen some people talk about. The Titans would have to eat a lot of that contract. There was no eating of the contract with Amari. It was straight up. It was simple-ish.
Contract had already been eaten. Like that move had already been made by Cleveland in a way that it hasn't been right now for the Titans, or that it wasn't for the Raiders, etc.
So I guess that's where I'm at is I don't want to say disappointed, but it's like, okay, you better have a plan. You've earned the right, but you better have a plan.
I think that's a very good way to put it, which is that it would be foolish right now to proclaim that Brett Veach has lost his touch or that the Chiefs don't care. Like, neither of those things are true. But it is also, it's underwhelming. This is a whelming experience at best right now, because it felt like there was at least one logical move that was available. We'll see about Deontay Johnson. Again, I think he also kind of has the long-term progress or the long-term view that it could still make some sense, that it might not make sense as a rental. I think we inch ever closer to a legit MVS reunion, or to seeing what the Rams would take for Demarcus Robinson. I don't know what his time out of the offense would do for his chance to contribute early on. The one other thing, though, and there's some truth to this. So I don't want anybody to immediately take this personally. But there's been a little bit of a conversation about well, when do the Chiefs ever do a midseason trade for a player that has some real juice to it, right? And there's a guy who had very different circumstances, and very different long-term views. It was not just a move for the rest of that year. But the Chiefs gave up a 3rd and a 6th for, as Amari Cooper just got traded with a 6th for a 3rd and a 7th. In 2022, the Chiefs gave up a 3rd and a 6th round pick for Kadarius Toney. Amari Cooper would have provided more value over the next 11 games than Kadarius Toney ever gave to the Chiefs. I don't really want to talk about the punt return. It was super helpful. It was a great return. Was the offense going to score there regardless? Maybe so. I genuinely don't care to relitigate that. It happened, and Kadarius Toney is no longer on the football team. In fact, he may be in line to get the call up because Amari Cooper just got traded. If Kadarius Toney is healthy in Cleveland on the practice squad, maybe this is his time to get 3 catches and then get hurt again. But the Chiefs have made moves when they thought they could benefit themselves big picture, long term. And we've talked about draft picks a lot. Anyone who's followed me for any period of time would know, I do place a real premium on draft picks, not just because they're a mystery box and maybe you'll get a great player. Your 2nd round wide receiver could be Rashee Rice. It could be Sky Moore. Your late round corner could be Jalen Watson. It could be Kamal Haddon, who is on the Packers practice squad, I think now. It's a mystery box. That's not the only reason, though. It's a high ceiling mystery box, because if you draft Trent McDuffie, an elite player, or George Karlaftis, a really good player, both of those guys are they're way outperforming their contract because that cost them no money on the rookie wage scale. Even with that being said, I relitigate all of my opinions on draft capital, so you know that I don't say flippantly. This team, and this is my issue with the Demarcus Robinson MVS conversation now, this team isn't really just lacking a number 3 wide receiver, which they are. Justin Watson led the team in snaps against New Orleans and had 0 targets. that's not a real receiver. You have somebody running cardio to keep the defense honest. They only played legitimate reps for Watson, Juju, and Worthy. The other two guys, Hardman and Moore, played a little bit. McColl got a couple of targets on a couple catches, in fact, on his limited snaps and routes run. This guy never saw the football. This team isn't just missing depth at receiver. They're missing at the top of the receiver room right now. I think they're missing a number one receiver right now. This team's number one wide receiver is a rookie that's 175 pounds. I am a believer in Xavier Worthy, and I don't really think the 175 is a career argument, but I think it's a usage argument in terms of what they lost with Rashee Rice. I don't think Xavier Worthy can live Rashee Rice's life and be here for us in December and January. He can do some stuff over the middle. He's not, who was the speedster that always ran out of bounds at the end? He played for the Texans and Dolphins. Ted Ginn Jr.
Yeah.
I was thinking of somebody else also. There might be someone else who meets those criteria. But yeah, he's not Ted Ginn, who you're afraid to let him tiptoe over the middle of the field. He helped ice the game in Atlanta, right? Or no, sorry, almost at the end of Atlanta, did against the Chargers. But Worthy as a rookie is wide receiver 1. And Juju Smith-Schuster, who was not on this team in training camp, is wide receiver number 2 right now. A guy that a whole lot of Chiefs fans did not want to see as wide receiver 5 or 6. If you bump all those guys back down 1, I think you've got a real offense again. Right now, even acknowledging that Travis Kelce is target number 1, I really felt like Amari Cooper was a very, very good answer for this team, even if it does. And the third rounder would have hurt. I understand that. And again, I don't even know if the Chiefs got that far. Maybe they're all in on Johnson. Maybe it's Deontay Johnson for a third, and we're going to re-sign him as soon as the season's over. Maybe we come up with a deal before the trade's official. Can we get you? Maybe this would be really weird. I don't know that Johnson would do this. Can we get you for next year right now? Can we guarantee you a bunch of money for 2025 to make sure that we're not just getting you for however many games, 10 games it ends up being? But I think fairly, I'm kind of bummed that Amari Cooper is a Bill and not a Chief right now, because this would have been a very fun conversation to have with Cooper coming to Kansas City. And right now, I am legitimately having this discussion about if MVS makes sense on this roster.
And again, the one thing I will say, I'm actually applauding the Jets and the Bills right now. But the Jets have not won a Super Bowl in 56 years. Yeah. The Bills have never won one. It's a little different. They're going to have to be more aggressive. There's a reason for them to be more aggressive. That's right. The Chiefs have proven over the past couple seasons, which is kind of leading me into this next conversation here, they can win with whatever. They can win any style. They are a chameleon. Whether it's ugly or not, they find ways to win, which kind of leads me into this is the new normal. This is the new Chiefs. We can complain. We can argue about, do they need another wide receiver? We all agree they do. But it's probably going to be MVS. It might be Demarcus Robinson. But what it's going to be is the Chiefs still finding ways to win games, whether it's 23-20, 17-14. What it comes down to is they still find ways to win. It might not be pretty. It's not going to look like what it did in 2019 offensively, at least. But we also know the defense is much better. We know that the offensive line, for the most part, is much better. And at some point, I think we all have to come to this realization, which I'm coming to. This is who the Chiefs are, and this is who they are offensively. Last year, I got to look it back up so I can confirm, they averaged 5.6 yards per play. Do you want to take a gander what they averaged this year? 5.6 yards per play.
I was going to go 5.8. I was not going to hit 6, but I was in
it's the exact same.
Yeah.
Like, we keep saying, well, wait until the offense breaks out or wait until the turnover stop. When was the last time they've consistently won the turnover margin? It was last year's playoffs, but the season it wasn't. They're negative turnover differential this year yet again. Yet they're 5-0. It's almost like the Royals with Escobar. Like, it doesn't always make sense. You're like, how is this happening? How does this work? Don't argue with it. It does. The Chiefs are 5-0, and I'm starting to believe that this is who they are.
I think it's who they can be. I don't know if it's going to be good enough. and not good enough to win the AFC West, good enough to three-peat. The only metric we're actually really discussing here because they have moved their standards so high. The issue with this offense has been, it was also the issue with parts of the offense last year, so it obviously doesn't mean they can't win the Super Bowl with this. They certainly can. They have the best quarterback in the sport, and he frequently outperforms the other best quarterbacks in the sports the most when the game is the biggest. So you have a built-in cheat code by having Mahomes. But it is a high variance way to go about your business. It is a riskier way to try to win football games. If the running game does get stuffed up, you can let Mahomes be Mahomes, but what happens when MVS downfield last year lets a game go through his hands or gets tackled in a game is not rewarded due to a penalty that should have been called? In moments like that, you can say, oh, well, Amari Cooper would have moved the chains here when Kadarius Toney last year. Of course, I'm blending my eras. Amari Cooper would have moved the chains here when Kadarius Toney dropped it. Or the week after the deadline, Juju's knee starts acting up, and now Sky Moore is legitimately running 40 routes a game. There are very thin lines holding this version of the offense in place. They can win a Super Bowl this way. I think right now they deserve to be there with the Bills and the Texans as like the three teams in the AFC who I think have proven that they have the best. I could throw the Ravens in there, even though
I would throw them in there. I'd throw that top four as a clear top four in the AFC.
I think that's right. And the Chiefs will have their chance on the tiebreakers for the others. But I'm having a hard time perfectly framing where I put that, or how to explain it in a way that isn't very easily taken out of context or very easily misunderstood. The Chiefs' chances of winning the Super Bowl this way are lower than their chances of winning the Super Bowl with their healthy receivers, obviously, with a pass-oriented offense, obviously. The defense is great independently. But they still may have the best chance of winning the Super Bowl with any team in the AFC. And there's not an NFC team that I would rank ahead of them. I'm just like splitting it into conferences because one of each of those teams gets to the Super Bowl. So let's just get to the Super Bowl. The Chiefs may have the best chance in the AFC of getting to the Super Bowl, but their chances would be higher, and I would feel a lot better if they had one legitimate, proven top 50 receiver on this team. They entered the year with two of them. Right now they have zero of them. And I feel like you'd be foolish to completely write that off, which is why I don't think the Chiefs are completely writing it off. I think more likely they're talking about Deontay Johnson and they're seeing what it would take and what it would look like if they were able to just evolve as an offense completely. And maybe they're really optimistic about Hollywood being back around Christmas.
Yeah. And I'll also point out 12 personnel, 13 personnel. We saw at one point 14.
Jody Fortson. Let me do this. All four active tight ends got more snaps than McCole Hardman and Sky Moore last week or 2 weeks ago.
And I think you'll see a lot of 12 personnel. And I think there's something that Donnie in the chat right there brought up. It says Pacheco and Hunt, Chiefs become a running team. NFL defenses are not set up to stop the run in today's NFL. I actually do think there's something to that. And I've talked about this before, talked about it with Emmitt Smith. I actually talked about it briefly with Derrick Henry before the season started. I was like, hey, Derrick, have you noticed that linebackers are no longer these hulking forces, and now a lot of them are meant to stop the pass, right? Like Nick Bolton, to an extent, is almost more or less an outlier, or at least a team old school, right? A run-first linebacker. That's their job. There's not a ton of those around the NFL, or at least teams don't have two of them anymore. Now it is maybe you got a run-stopping guy. I love that the balloons are going off right now because I'm so excited.
Talk about Nick Bolton and your webcam's like we need to celebrate here.
But there's something to that. I think the Chiefs can win running some 12 personnel. The Chiefs can win running the football effectively. Mahomes has to take care of the football a little better. But I do think there is something to the teams are now more concerned about stopping the pass than ever before. The Chiefs do have an offensive line, a quarterback, 12 personnel with some tight ends who can take advantage of some of those situations. Yeah. So again, if the Chiefs evolve, this is what you're looking at, by the way. If you're expecting 30 plus points a game and some explosion, I think you'll be reaching, at least consistently. But the Chiefs still can win this way, which is, again, why I keep saying this is the new Chiefs normal. This is an advantage they have. Having three tight ends they trust, four if you count in Jody Fortson. Having Kareem Hunt that is looked really good. And then you add in Isaiah Pacheco when he comes back. Like Travis Kelce, by the way, we talked all offseason. Is he getting older? Yes, of course he is. But is he getting washed? I kept pumping the brakes on that. I almost looks like he just knocked the rust off the first few weeks. How many snaps?
Silly. We were here to tell the people that was silly.
No, I know, but how many snaps did he play the first few weeks? It wasn't like,
ton. I almost cussed. I guess I
but
could
like
have
it wasn't. You can on here. Have fun.
A shit ton.
Whoa, dude.
Sorry, man.
Whoa, man.
I apologize. Sorry. I'd like to apologize to my family and the fans and God and everyone and Richard. I'd like to apologize to Matt Verderam. I'd like to apologize to everyone for the naughty word that I just used after being egged on by Sterling. Thank you. Please respect my privacy in this very difficult time.
As there's a drive into left field by
That's a deep drive. That's a deep throw to deep left, and Marquez Valdez-Scantling drops it. Oh, and I don't know if I'm putting this headset back on again.
No, man, but I do think you're starting to look at more what the Chiefs are. You'll see some more 12 personnel. You'll see a lot more the 20 plus carries for a specific running back. I mean, hell, Kareem Hunt had 27. I don't know if 27 is going to continue, but you might start seeing those 20 to 25s more consistently.
Yeah, if they felt like they could trust Steele a little more, I'd feel a little better about that too. I do think Reed joked about it after the game, and I think he may have mentioned it Monday also. Yesterday, I suppose. Long week. But like the joke of, I told Kareem he was going to spend the bye week in the ice tub. There's some truth to that. Like I might not try to put that same workload on him every week. I don't think Samaje Perine necessarily signed up for that either, but there could be some usefulness for Steele there. Clyde could be back whenever now. I'm not super optimistic about him having the same impact as a runner that Hunt and Pacheco both have. Again, hopefully Pacheco's back on the sooner end of when that timeline could be, but it could be anything at this point. I just don't really think we know enough yet. The part of it that I'll add to that should also provide some encouragement, I think, is that they have still been moving the football very well. The reason that the points haven't been there is because they've completely fallen apart in the red zone, or you do have costly turnovers late in drive. Or it doesn't really matter when in the drive, I suppose, in theory, but you've seen an offense that moves well until penalties, turnovers, and red zone mistakes end up stunting the drive. I don't have the stats in front of me. I believe Harrison Butker has kicked 55 field goals from inside the one. I don't think that's quite accurate, but it's what it feels like this year. A lot of short field goals that should have been 6. So the Chiefs don't, the good news, to your point, is that the Chiefs don't need a stylistic overhaul to be functional. They just need to finish drives. The problem is, how do you finish drives? With better execution. How do you get better execution? Better players. That's where we're at now.
Which is interesting because the Chiefs have had this issue since Mahomes, since 2019, if I'm correct, since 2019 to now. Do you want to know how many times the Chiefs have been top 10 in red zone touchdown percentage?
I think never, right?
Once.
Okay.
The year after Tyreek Hill left, they were second in the NFL.
Juju season.
They've been 11th a couple times. So I'm not trying to cherry pick but top 11, no one says that. It's top 10, right? It's top 10. Do you know where they're at this year?
Oh, in red zone success rate?
I
believe they're 30th.
I had them at 29th the last I saw.
Okay, very
which
good.
was,
Moving
which
on
was
up.
Before Monday Night Football. So
I was thinking pre-Monday night also. So I knew it was, I believe that they were ahead of the Browns and Dolphins last I saw. So I don't know who else you had there, but
then maybe it was 30th.
It could have been. Hey, listen, it's down.
Last year they were 19th.
Yeah.
So what I'm also trying to get at here is this is not a team that's traditionally been great in the red zone. They have had their struggles. Your eyes aren't lying to you when you say, man, it sure feels like the Chiefs offense has been great, but they struggle in the red zone. This is nothing new. Again, it's why I keep saying this is a little bit who they are. 29th now, for example, is a lot worse than they've actually ever been when it comes to these red zone, or 30th in these red zone numbers. But you're just a couple of touchdowns instead of field goals away of them being exactly where they traditionally are in the Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid era, which is about middle of the pack.
I just saw a comment from Lauren on Facebook saying, trade a first rounder for Malik Neighbors so the Giants can go get their new franchise quarterback. Obviously, that's not going to happen. The Giants wouldn't trade, that. Where did he go? 5 or 6 last year. I can't. 6th. They're not going to trade last year's 6th round or 6th overall pick, who looks every bit of it, for the 30th, 31st, 32nd pick in this year's draft. That's obviously not going to happen. But I have been entertaining to that point. I'm not just dunking on it. I've been thinking a more aggressive move along those lines. Still, that feels like the way you can amend what this year's offense looks like without mortgaging your future, so to speak. 3rd rounder for a rental feels like you're mortgaging your future a little bit. I'm not saying this is a fundamentally good idea, and I don't even know who the player would be. But if the Bengals were actually we really are fully out on T. Higgins, do you guys want him now? Which would be foolish of their part on their part too, and the Chiefs would have a lot of financial issues. This is not feasible. But join me in mystery dreamland. If the Bengals were hey, this season's pretty much over, and we're gonna do something else. Do you guys want to give us this pick for T. Higgins? He'll sign an extension when he gets to Kansas City. I would be thinking about that in a different tense right now than I was before the Brown and Rice injuries. I know that's a pivot, but I got distracted by the ever passing pie in the sky idea of Patrick Mahomes having Malik Neighbors. I was so swept away into that fairy world that I could not ground myself.
And the Chiefs go, yeah, we have Malik Neighbors at home. His name is Sky Moore. He was a 2nd rounder, right?
His name is John Ross.
Yeah,
Justin Ross.
He was drafted just around the same spot, right?
Yeah.
1st rounder. John Ross was.
Almost.
Yeah, he's no longer on the team, of course.
Yeah,
Kadarius Toney.
It feels good to get Justin and John Ross confused in 2024. Really keeps me humble.
Good.
Although they've both been active for the same number of games for the Chiefs this year, so.
And what I will keep telling folks, the Chiefs don't have a lot of salary cap to work with this season. So when you're busting out a lot of these...
Mango. Tell me why Nico Remigio isn't playing. Mango, where are you? He used to be in here all the time talking about Nico Remigio. I don't have an answer for you. I can't tell you why he's not playing. Didn't even activate him. They played 5 wide receivers against the Saints. 5!
Basically 3.
And yes, that's right. They played... So here's what the Chiefs did against the Saints. They had 5 guys with WR next to their name. One of them is an outside blocker who played 6 or 7 snaps. His name is Moore, and unfortunately, we're seeing less of him. And then McCole Hardman, he was allowed some gadget plays and some special teams work. Are Ross and Remigio worth having on the practice squad? This would be the time, right? Sterling, you want my conspiracy theory here?
I would love it.
About the receivers? If Remigio or Ross end up getting an active roster spot after the trade deadline, we will know that the Chiefs were shopping. Because the only reason right now to not just pick your favorite of those two is you'd have to make one of the roster move when Clyde comes back, I guess. Maybe they're going to carry 4 they have 4 tight ends, and theoretically they're going to have 4 running backs before Pacheco comes back, by the way. But unless you just want to have 8 heavy there.
Yeah.
If the only reason not, and they may, as we've discussed, the only reason not to just call up your favorite of Ross and Remigio right now is because you don't want to have to cut them and put them back out there, put them on waivers and start that whole process again. They can be picked up right now, to be clear, but you don't want to put them through that whole process again if you think you may have Deontay Johnson in 2 weeks. So if the trade deadline passes and then they do call somebody up, I think we'll know they were kind of holding that last receiver spot just in case something happened. Little theory to wrap my tinfoil around my head and to let you think about.
Appreciate the super chat from Reggie Comedy.
Hey, Reggie, what's up? Reggie has been a long time. In fact, I got something of Reggie's over here on a shelf. Go ahead, you can answer the question.
I want him to obviously tell a joke too. I see Reggie Comedy. I expect a joke at some point. Says according to Matt Verderam, would only cost the Chiefs less than $2 million this year and $10 million next year against the cap to trade for Hill. Brisco, any thoughts there?
I think that Tyreek Hill has a biological need for attention, and that is the main substance behind why he's reposting his old Chiefs highlights and his relationship with Patrick Mahomes and all of that. Because the Dolphins aren't really getting attention as a football team right now, so the best way for him to get it is by doing what he's doing. I think we're still a few years away from this reunion, but I think that in a few years, I think Tyreek Hill retiring a Chief, here's my prediction. Tyreek Hill retiring a Chief probably won't just be for 1 day and a little practice handoff like Jamal Charles's little photo op with Mahomes. I think 32-year-old Tyreek Hill might show up and try to get another ring.
Fact.
I just don't think we're there right now.
I would have to agree. I think I'm in the same boat as you.
And also, I don't think also this is maybe more substantive. The Dolphins can't do that right now. Like this season's obviously a disaster, but it's a disaster accentuated by the loss of their quarterback. If Tua comes back, which apparently is the plan, Tua comes back without Tyreek Hill there, you have now wasted an enormous contract on a receiver and effectively wasted an enormous contract on your quarterback. I think keeping Tua, Tyreek, Waddle, and McDaniel together, I think once one of those pieces goes, the group probably falls apart.
I just can't imagine being a Miami fan or a player and seeing all these Chiefs things being posted by Tyreek and being thrilled by that. But
no,
also,
it has to suck. It's crazy.
Also, I guess you kind of had to know what you got into. Like that's also like a little bit like you traded for a unicorn. The unicorn's going to be a unicorn. It's no longer going to be a horse, and acting it to pretend like it's a horse won't work. It's a unicorn.
Yeah, no, you're right. I have other thoughts that may bubble out here, but like Hollywood Brown, like the night he signed with the Chiefs, was on Twitch, like celebrating and hanging out, and somebody got him to play a Taylor Swift song. Like he was just he was still in front of a camera and visible and all of that, but he was just like vibing and having a good time, and was in no way has he ever given off this feeling of like, I am going to make myself the problem here. And it feels like Tyreek can't stop doing that. And even when it's not serious, I know it's not serious, but it's hard for the rest of the world to look at that and think like, yeah, like here's what I'll say. I know it's not serious 100%. And even I think it might be 10% serious. That's a horrible spot to put your team in. As explicitly like probably the face of that organization.
I have a question for you.
Hit me.
So what's up with this whole Troy Aikman thing?
What about it?
What happened? Well, he was clapping back at you and he called you a certain name.
Yeah. So if you're not,
did he call you a dumbass or what was it? It was
jackass.
Jackass Josh.
Yeah, I don't think he knows what my actual name is. And that's okay. And maybe for the best. But 5 years ago, I said on what was then Times Ours and now is effectively Only Weird Games over on KC Sports Network, but it was on The Athletic at the time. Times Ours was. And I gave out a stat that was something along the lines of Patrick Mahomes has thrown, I should have the tweet memorized by this point. It was like Patrick Mahomes has thrown 38% of Troy Aikman's career touchdown passes despite having played in 8% of the games. Something crazy like that, where my entire logic was, I'm going to get the Hall of Fame quarterback with the lowest, because at that point, Mahomes' most standout stat was how many touchdowns he had thrown extremely early in his career. So I was like, I'll pick the Hall of Fame quarterback with the worst touchdowns to games played ratio, and then, use that as a measuring stick for how outrageously good Mahomes' start has been. So I said that on a podcast. And then our producer tweeted out the clip. And then later, one of the Twitter accounts quote tweeted it and wrote the stat out from one of the Athletic Twitter accounts. And then Troy Aikman saw that and quote tweeted it with, talk to me when he has 33% of my rings. So that was a whole thing at the time. It was all fun, great content, et cetera, et cetera. From the very beginning, Troy seemed to take it extremely personally, which was a choice that he made. And so years go by, Mahomes wins his first ring shortly thereafter, his second ring pretty shortly after that, his third ring the very next season. And each time the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, that's what my mentions turn into, is like, where is Troy Aikman now? But last week, he was on Pardon My Take, arguably the biggest sports podcast in the world, and they asked him about that tweet of, talk to me when he has 33% of my rings, because now Mahomes, of course, has 100% of Troy Aikman's Super Bowl rings. So Aikman is asked about it from the Pardon My Take guys, and he explains the story of how he saw that tweet, and he thought this writer, this jackass, was taking a shot at me, Troy Aikman. So it was never a shot at Patrick Mahomes. It was more me taking a shot at this writer, is more or less how it was delivered on there. One of my favorite things about his appearance, which is tremendous, and you can watch the social video the Pardon My Take team put out. My favorite part about that was that he opened it very defensively, much like the Cowboys of his era. He opened it up very defensively by saying, now, look, I don't even get on Twitter I'm never on Twitter. But I just happened to be on this day in 2019. And I saw this jackass. So I thought Aikman was great talking about the refs last night. I thought he really was in a good headspace. I tweeted about it. Of course, he won't see it because he's never on Twitter except for that one time when he was extremely on Twitter. But yeah, no, he took real offense to a stat that was really about Patrick Mahomes. I would love to chat with him still and clear the air. I don't think that'll probably happen, but I'm certainly open. Because as was absolutely true from I went to Namath first because I thought Namath was like sort of like historically the least statistically impressive Super Bowl quarterback. I think he's, his space in there is rightful, but that was sort of the reputation. But I found that Aikman ended up having a worse games to touchdowns ratio. Not the most important thing for a quarterback, but the most fun Mahomes stat of the time in 2019. But he thought that a podcast about the Kansas City Chiefs was taking a shot at Troy Aikman of the Dallas Cowboys. And, he just, much like those Cowboys, Sterling, I think Aikman just really wished it was about him.
Yeah, it's really good. That jackass. I'm talking about you, of course. Yeah, man. I just that will never not be funny.
Renee was at an event
not
today.
Be funny.
Renee was out at a networking thing today for her real job. And she heard a few people at the networking event talking about Troy Aikman. She told me this story like a few hours ago when she got home. Heard people talking about Troy Aikman. Heard the conversation turn to, yeah, did you see what he said on Pardon My Take? Renee sort of slid in there and said, oh, we're talking about Troy Aikman. And they were like, oh, yeah, what's your deal? And she went, oh, I'm Mrs. Jackass.
Oh, well, congrats to being Mr. and Mrs. Jackass.
Thank you so much.
We got that going. Great show. Do you and Johnny Knoxville hang out or?
Yeah, no, I would rather I'd do irresponsible things with the shopping cart than relive that experience. But
Tone B says you'll see Troy during Super Bowl week and you'll get a chance to interview him. If I do see Troy when I'm at the Super Bowl this year, I will 1000% bring this up and say I'm actually pretty good friends with Mr. Jackass.
Can you like just get me on the call or something? 'Cause I feel like I need to represent myself. I'm afraid to have a lawyer in this instance because I feel like the truth will set me free. I don't think he's gotten the exact context of how that all went.
Yeah, I'll FaceTime you. By the way, Thomas Lester, that's a hilarious message. Very funny, by the way. All right, before we get out of here, any final thoughts? Amari Cooper, obviously. None. Third rounder, not going to KC. Devontae Adams, third rounder, not going to KC. MVS released from the Bills, maybe going to KC. We'll see, though. I mean, there's still names out there. Calvin Ridley seems not happy in his current situation. Deontay Johnson is toiling away on a horrendous Panthers team. We'll see, though. The Chiefs are 5-0. It's a great problem to have. They're not the Jets who felt like they had to go out and make this move. The Bills, to an extent, almost felt like they had to go out and make this move. The Chiefs sit at 5-0. Most likely their hardest stretch of the season is behind them, or at least one of the stretches that probably has the most playoff implications. They came out unscathed. They face the 49ers coming up on this Sunday. Going to be a tough one. No Christian McCaffrey. We'll see. But it's a great spot for the Chiefs to be in where we're all in. We're semi-complaining and arguing and like, why couldn't you give him a third rounder for Amari Cooper? As again, the Chiefs sit at 5-0.
And I sit on a yoga ball.
You were waiting so long to say that. That sucks. If you want to listen to more of Brisco, check him out on KCSN. He'll be up in about a half hour with only weird games. Appreciate all y'all in the chat. Again, always a lot of fun hanging out with you guys. We'll keep you guys posted on any upcoming situations in regards to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll be back tomorrow with Adam Best. Until then, we are out.